Hello, lovely people. For today, as promised in our sunflower marathon, we'll be painting tulips. You can see the reference photo via the link below to our Facebook event. And now, to start off, I have prepared a very light sketch of the three white tulips. And I won't be using masking tape this time. I won't think about the borders and I will be trying out something new today. As I've discussed in our last week's marathon, I will be trying to paint straight using paint or pigment straight from the tube. So, except for the violet one. This is carbazole violet, cobalt blue, lavender, Payne's gray, and sap green. So, a fairly limited palette. If you don't have lavender, you can just try adding a bit of violet and white to your blue. And if you don't have Payne's gray, you can try and add brown or blue or violet to your green. So to start off, here's what I'm planning to do. I will wet the whole area except for this tulip, our focal point, and I will also wet the back side of the paper and see if it will be helpful in prolonging the wetness of the paper. So I'm going to try this now. I've learned this from Sir Eman Silva and who's the other one? From ZZ Lai. So she was doing this. They were doing this to achieve a smooth background. So wet the back of your paper. It's okay if you're not used to this technique. In fact, this is the first time that I will be trying this out while doing a demo. Okay, as mentioned, I will paint around the main tulip shape, tulip flower, and then I'll work on the background and some of the elements on the foreground, like the leaves, the blue flowers that are out of focus. I'm just wetting this area. You can tilt your paper to check which parts you have covered with clean water. Oops. Right. So I'll start with the background color, with the sky color. Let me just dab this part. I accidentally wetted that part. Okay. And paint. This is lavender plus cobalt blue. I'm also painting around the other two tulips, but compared to this one, this will have a harder edge since this shape is dry. Okay. Now while that is wet, I will introduce the blues and greens on the foreground. It was also my decision to change the orientation of the painting from portrait to landscape. I'm just painting random abstract shapes here. And then go for the green. Oh, it's not visible. But here is my sap green. To green, I'll add blue, a bit of Payne's gray, and paint in some green shapes. Now adding in more Payne's gray. More. Even more. For the darkest colors. I'm lifting up some colors since that should be, this is the other tulip. Now with lavender plus a bit of Payne's gray, I will paint the shadow on the two tulips in the background. Now I'll carefully wet the inner part of this tulip. I'm being careful not to touch the edges. And then lift the excess water and paint the shadows too. So that's lavender plus a bit of, the lizard approves. Lavender plus a bit of Payne's gray. A bit of details for the other two, not too much. And using the back side of your brush or anything, sorry for the shake, anything that is sharp You can scratch in some details while this is still wet. You can even do the same for the leaves here. Okay, now we'll just have to let this dry and I'll continue working on the flowers. Right, the first wash has dried completely, but it took some time that I had to leave it overnight for it to dry completely. Now all that's left is lifting up some colors to introduce the highlights and adding some details on the flowers. What I'll do is I'll grab a synthetic flat brush, I'll wet it with water, and to reintroduce the highlight here on the stem, I'll just gently scrub and pat dry with paper towel. I'll do the same for the other areas that I think need a bit of retouch. As you can see, the scratched parts are looking good. You can also use the same technique to soften some parts of the flower. Now I'll grab this brush again and load it with sap green. And just paint over those shapes. Okay. I'll grab a smaller brush, something like this, to add yellow on some parts of the flower. Soften that edge. I'm mixing Payne's gray with a bit of purple to darken some parts of the flower too. I think this part should be darker. Rinse my brush and soften. So far, so good. I'll just add birds in the distance. You can also add butterflies, other insects, just to make this part busier. And splatter some colors for texture. I think it's done. If you painted along and want to receive some feedback, please use the link in the description to share your artwork. Thanks!